Hello and welcome. Happy New Year from the Turn 4 podcast. I am your host, Dan Maldonado. This your first visit. Welcome. And thank you for joining us. Before we get started, let me introduce you to my co-host, Tim Reiner. Hey, Timmy.
Hello, Dan.
How are you?
Doing okay. How about yourself?
I'm good. I'm wonderful.
That's
I
good.
couldn't be
It is a
better.
new year, right? So you
It
you
is a
should
new
be
year.
wonderful. Everybody should be
Yeah.
wonderful at this time of the year.
We're recording early. We're recording on a Sunday night instead of a Monday night. And why are we doing that, Timmy?
There's a national championship game happening tomorrow night, and the Wolverines are in it.
Yes, they
So
are.
we had to move this so that way we could watch the game. Not that I'm a big Wolverine fan, as some of you probably
Not at
know,
all.
but
But you're
but it
rooting for Wolverines, right?
I think so. Yeah, you want to see the Big Ten win, but yeah,
Instead
I
of the
don't know.
future
We'll
Big
see how
Ten?
I say that again.
Instead of the future Big Ten. Isn't Washington joining the Big Ten next year?
Oh, they might be. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they're part of it. Yeah, that is true. So
I'm
yeah,
not.
interesting.
Yeah.
All Big Ten matchup.
Yeah. We had some family here for the Rose Bowl, and it was a good game. You know, it was a little sloppy in the beginning, but it
The
ended
nail
up being a
biter.
pretty good game. Yeah. And
Mhm.
it was good. It was good to see everybody here. And then we have some family that are at in Houston. They're already there, and they're sending back some pictures. So they're
Oh
excited about
wow!
it. I'm not that. I'm a
And they're
fan,
going to the game,
obviously.
huh?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I'm a
Okay.
fan, obviously, but I'm not that big a fan. Like I'm not,
You
that
got the shirt on.
I know, but I do it just to aggravate you. And I couldn't find anything. I couldn't find a Lions shirt, although I do have a Lions T-shirt, which I guess I could have worn. You're wearing a T-shirt today. It must be warm in your house.
It's not that warm. I think I'm just running a little warm after being sick for several days. So yeah, it's not super warm, but yeah, just t-shirt day for me.
Yeah, that's right.
So
Just
yeah,
T-shirt day.
just t-shirt day. A cycling shirt. I got to get on my bike, so I got to. It's inspiration on my chest.
I rode the bike yesterday. Had a good ride, mountain
Hopefully
bike ride.
indoors.
15. No, we were out. There was a group
Oh,
of eight of
jeez.
us out mountain bikes, Island Lake Rec. 15 miles was fun. Was out of gas at
Sounds like a
like
great
2 miles
time.
to go.
How cold were you?
Wasn't cold at all because you're working.
I get it.
Yeah. So about 2 miles to go, I was out of gas. I was like, I'm ready to be done. I could literally walk the rest of this, like, and be totally fine.
But you
So
made it, of course, as you
I
always
did.
do.
Yeah, I did.
That's good.
Um, New year, Timmy. New year, ready for the season to get underway. I don't know about you. Um, I feel like I'm ready to get the season underway because obviously that means it's the start of spring, though it has been pretty mild here in Michigan. It hasn't been too bad, except for the
Yeah.
rain, of course, right?
Hmm.
Um, but I also feel like when it's like mild like this, when it gets like a late start, it's just going to end later. So I'm hoping I'm wrong.
Feels like it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they all predicted it was going to be pretty mild, and it's been very mild for sure.
Yeah.
So, I think we got a little dusting of snow out there right now, but nothing like we've had in the past years. So
Yeah.
it's
And
been
I,
disappointing.
yeah. And I drove out this morning. It snowed kind of overnight. There was some a little bit on the ground, and I drove out, north of here this morning, and it was fine. Roads were fine. I mean, it wasn't doom and gloom. It's going to snow a little later on this week.
Well,
I do have some
we can,
work travel by car, so we'll see how that goes.
yeah.
But
Yeah, we came back from Harbor Springs yesterday, and we had a 70-mile-an-hour little slide on some ice
love it.
going down I-75. That was a little tricky. It kind of catches you off a
Yeah,
little
it
bit, and
does,
you're like,
doesn't it?
"Whoa,
Yeah.
guess it's a little icier than I thought." But we had 2, 3 inches of snow up there, and so it was coming home, and whoo, even the passenger jumped out of their seat a little
Really?
bit, and oh yeah, you could feel it. You could feel it all the way through, and even my newest driver who wasn't driving at the time, he goes, "Damn, was that ice?" And I said, "Oh yeah, that was ice."
Yeah.
So we got
Yeah.
through.
Well,
It
thank
reminds
God.
me of the wiggle, right? You come on a turn two, you get that
Mhm.
little, and it looks like nothing, but
Just
it
don't
feels like
steer.
a lot in the car. Yeah,
Yeah, it
yeah,
does. Yeah. And a
yep.
big car, and you're loaded up too. You got gear and the whole bit too.
Oh
So,
yeah, we had everything. It was
yeah.
loaded down. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Nevertheless, IMSA starting in a few weeks. And of course, NASCAR starts a little bit after that. In fact, our show will be again at the 24 Hours of Daytona, third year in a row. Although it won't be you and I, it'll be Baby Girl and me, the junior
Yeah.
member of our social media staff. And I'm not 100% sure she knows what she's getting herself into, but I'm looking forward to it.
She has no idea what she's in for.
Yeah.
Come on now.
So
That is quite the event. It is a great event to go, and I'm sorry I'm missing it. And I was glad to read the notes today and saw that you're headed out there, so that'll be really nice. I think I'm gonna be in Orlando, excuse me, the weekend or the week before for like a day, but I will not
mhm.
be going over to Daytona for the race. So you should have a great time, and yeah, I wish you all the best sleeping in the car, whatever
Yeah,
that car might be.
it'll be good. See, she's younger, so she doesn't need a lot of sleep. So we'll see how it actually works out for me. I may actually be in with dragging her back to the car unless she gets cold.
Yeah, well,
But it depends
I
on what
hope
the
it's
weather
warm.
is. I
Yeah,
mean,
I
right
hope
now
it's
the
warm.
weather's super mild, but it's
Yeah.
still a few weeks away. So with that said, today's episode is not the Daytona 24 preview episode. That'll come to you in a couple of weeks on the 22nd of January. Instead, we're going to talk a little bit about the holiday break. Two unfortunate losses that happened over the holiday. And then we're going to talk a little bit about listener notes. And then we'll send you on your way. So, Tim, how was your holiday break? Did some
It
stuff.
was good. It was good. Besides the illnesses that went on through the house, everybody's doing well. We did a lot of stuff. We had a lot of Christmases, as it appears you did too. We did a lot of stuff. We had a birthday celebration where we had 50 plus people over. So that probably and I didn't participate in a couple of the holiday things because of an illness. So I was in bed for 3 days. But I think the highlight of the break thus far was going up to Harbor Springs to do some snow skiing.
Yeah.
So we did that, and that's what we were coming home from yesterday. So we had the whole family up there, plus part of another family came up, and we hit the slopes, even though there were not a lot of slopes open. Those that are up at the Highlands, as they call it now, up in Boyne,
Because
they're
it's
working
been so
hard to get
mild.
the.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been super mild. I think they said one guy was up there. He said the first time in 20 years that they haven't had a white Christmas, and they still didn't have a lot of snow on the ground. So the snow machines were working overtime, and so were the guys. But uh, yeah, and then I think as I see, yes, we got a kid that's driving now. So we had a birthday that we got a 16-year-old now. So
Happy birthday, buddy.
yeah, so we'll see how that goes. And he's got his truck to drive. So we'll see what's going on there.
Good luck.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
have
So
no
how was
more
yours?
teenage drivers. I have one teenage driver that won't be a teenage driver in 10 days.
Yeah,
But that's all behind me. So good luck. Jamie and
yeah. How
Flo
was
are going to become your new best friends.
Oh Lord, I'm waiting for them to catch up to me. I'm not reaching out. I'm gonna wait for them to reach out to me. I'm sure it's not gonna take too long because
Yeah.
I always find that stuff out.
Oh
So
yeah, they
yeah,
find it out pretty quickly.
yeah. And yours?
Good. Good. Like you, we have multiple Christmas celebrations. We had three, I suppose. I mean, Christmas Eve, and so a little smaller affair than normal. Less than 30, and then Christmas Day, and then which is always small, so less than 10, and then we had a third Christmas up in the northern part there, and we cruised up
Yeah,
there
by
and
me.
had a
You were
wonderful
up my
time.
way.
Yeah, had a
Yeah,
wonderful time up there. Good meals, and we ate good, and ate entirely too much sugar, and probably still on a sugar withdrawal at this point.
yeah.
I was
And
looking at the candy.
folks, this is how I know Dan's close to me. I get a picture of my exit sign off of the expressway.
That's right.
Just a random text with a
That's right.
picture of my exit sign, and I go, "What are you doing up here?"
Yeah.
And he just had a
Third
holiday
Christmas. Yeah.
Christmas celebration.
Yeah. I did enjoy it. I had some time off. I had about 10 days off, which was really good. Not a big reader. I think you're more of a reader than I am, but I got the Matthew Perry book for Christmas and got to read his memoir. Incredibly sad, but would definitely recommend it to anybody if you're into that kind of stuff. It was a good read. It was super easy. It was less than 300 pages. You can hear his voice. At least that's how I am. I'm very, when I read, I always kind of hear it. But it was good. It was very, very sad.
Hmm.
An
I'll have to
unreal
take a look at that
sort
one.
of life that he lived. I mean, with the demons of drugs and alcohol, and starting at a very young age, and everything else that he battled. I mean, if you look at against this timeline that he lays out for you, and you look at the 10 seasons of Friends, you can see 10 seasons of multiple addictions playing themselves out in a very public way
Wow.
for him.
Wow.
So happy, money does not buy you happiness. I mean, he made well over $80 million on Friends in and of itself, and he could never find any happiness in his life, which is truly sad.
Yeah, it's sad for sure.
And we watched Oppenheimer.
Nice. I have no idea what that is. Should I know what that
That's
is?
it's the movie, came out last year. Christopher Nolan, great, from Batman, and but he brought that out. Long movie, 3 hours. It's about the building of the atom bomb, I suppose, right? The
Oh,
first nuclear bomb. So that was dropped at the end of World War II, and the teams that built this and put this thing together. So it was an interesting movie. It tested every single inch of my attention deficit disorder because it was long and detailed and sciencey in a lot of ways. But it was good. It was good. And did I mention I ate too much?
yeah, you sort of did. Yeah, you ate too much. That doesn't surprise me. You are always commenting on the
A lot
food
of a lot
thing
of
on
sugar
Twitter
too.
or X or whatever it's called.
Yeah, the platform formerly known as Twitter.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, they're always putting food in front of
We
me.
did
I'm sure the
watch.
algorithms are like that.
Yeah, so we did watch Bad Dads. No, Old Dads. With
Never heard of it.
with Bill Burr. It's on Netflix. Oh my
Mm-hmm.
gosh.
I like Bill.
Bill Burr, the comic. So
Mm-hmm.
it's quite the funny show. So we did entertain ourselves a little bit over the holiday with that, but and a few other things that kind of came up. But good.
This is the off track version of the Turn Four podcast. We're talking about
Yeah, we just
everything
talk about random
except
stuff this time.
yeah.
I'm
Which
sure
is
there's still
fine.
at least one listener, right? There's still somebody out there
Somebody's
who wants to
still
hear what we
hanging
got
on.
going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, things were good. Ready to get back into it. It's been about a week of work. It was a short week, but it was a long week. It felt like to me, the 4 days, getting things in, reviews and everything else. So, we got a full week this week and then another short week next week. So, and then a short week after that, because I'll be headed to Daytona. So,
yeah, wow.
yeah. So
You
rain
get,
is a drag. The only thing I can say is,
you guys get Martin Luther King Day off. Is that what?
yeah, we get the
short week?
15th off. Mm-hmm.
Hmm. Good for you. That's a good thing.
So we get that off.
Always good to have
Somebody
more
was trying to
time off.
schedule a meeting on that day, and we was like, nope, ain't happening.
Yeah.
I used to go to a customer convention every year on that day, and the company would give me like a comp day, like just decide or just take a day and let us know.
Yeah, for sure, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So I used to go to a customer convention every year. It was on that day. It was like clockwork. You could book it.
You got a few of those that happen over the weekend, so good for you for sticking it out and doing it.
Yeah, and I miss my right. I've been on the road for my 30th birthday. I've been on the road for my 40th birthday. I'm likely to be on the road for my 50th birthday. I was on the road the last 2 years for my birthday, as a matter of fact. So, I was
crazy.
in Vegas one year. I seem to be always in Vegas
that.
during my birthdays for some reason.
Yeah.
But
And I know you're not a Vegas guy, so it's not like
No.
you're doing that on purpose. So
yeah. Yeah. Not a big gambler. I gamble the last night I'm there before I go upstairs and pack. Like after dinner, I'll find the Wheel of Fortune slot machine and I'll stick $20 in it, the 50 center, and then I'll play it until it's gone. And if I win or hit anything above the 20, I take it out immediately, cash it in, and go upstairs and pack and get ready to go home.
Better than me. I don't gamble at all when I go.
That's all I do. 20 bucks and then be done with it. I don't get any excitement by it at all. And I don't drink, so I mean sitting there and doing that, it doesn't do it for me either. So
yeah.
I'm completely bored by it. As you know, I have no attention span.
I know. It's sometimes difficult to, hang out with you at times because you're everywhere. We had lunch the other day, and I know this is before the holiday, and I was like, oh, Dan's moving. He's got stuff on his mind. He's got to keep moving and shaking. So I understand. That's how it just kind of goes down, but that's okay.
Mm-hmm. Look, dude, it's hard. I have a lot of responsibility at work. I have the home responsibility, and I have the responsibility of helping to manage this, grossly underperforming show.
Well, we got to do something in our spare time. So here we are.
That's right.
I think 2024 is the time, right?
This is the year.
Are we coming up on year 3, right?
It's our last 6 months. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, almost set my desk on fire this week, though. Setting our trips and planning our IndyCar trips and booking all that stuff, flights and hotels and tickets and everything else. My
you
credit card
5
was
or
like
6 already in the books, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I was ready to go. I'm like, might as well book them now. We know where we're going. Let's just get it done.
That's how you operate.
Put it in my work
You're
calendar, put it in this calendar, and then get everything ordered and
good
everything
deal.
going. So
You're much more organized than me.
yeah, Delta loves me right now,
Yeah.
as it
I'm
is.
like, we'll charge the
So,
card. No big
yeah,
deal.
yeah, no problem. Here you go. Thank you, Mr.
Yeah.
Mariello.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, we got to get on the show. So, it is good to see you, though. Happy New Year, Timmy.
Yeah. Happy New Year.
It's good to see you. Some unfortunate news happened, over the holiday break. I think this first bit, takes a lot of people by surprise. I don't think anybody would have
Oh, it was out of
expected or
left field.
would ever
Yeah.
thought in a million years that IndyCar champion and Indy 500 champion Gil de Ferran would have succumbed to a heart attack at a very young age of 56.
Mm-hmm.
He was on track at like a club event or something with his son in the car. Started not to feel well and had the good sense to pull over and stop the car. And I think he went into full arrest at that point, which could have been a much uglier incident, had he not done that, or had
Yeah, for
lost
sure.
consciousness or something in the car. Because
Mm-hmm.
what it sounds like from his daughter's Instagram post was that he was in the car with his son Luke. So I
Yeah.
think that's a pretty horrific situation for the son. I imagine for anybody who was there. But nevertheless, 56 years old, young, Tim Hart.
Really young. Yeah.
Mhm.
It's something that seems unheard of these days, and to hit the IndyCar community like that is really tough, especially and the family, of course, during the
Yeah,
holidays. That's never a good scenario. So yeah, obviously our thoughts go out to the family and everybody else that's been impacted for sure.
yeah. 160 total IndyCar starts between the IRL and Champ Car. He raced at an era where the split was in full force. At that point, it was between the time Champ Car was on the decline and everybody was bailing for the IRL. He does have 12 total wins. On the win record, he's tied with Cristiano D'Amata, which I thought was interesting to see that
Yeah.
name. Also with Tommy Milton, who is an IndyCar driver I'm unfamiliar with. 21 poles. He's tied with Dixon, and one ahead of Johnny Rutherford, which I thought was interesting. Kart Rookie of the Year in 1995. He won that over two countrymen, Christian Fittipaldi and Andre Ribeiro, the late Andre Ribeiro, who also he passed a couple of years ago. Champ Car Series champ 2000 and 2001. IRL Series runner-up in 2003. He was on it. 2000 finished as the champion with Adrian Fernandez right behind him, and then Roberto Moreno in third, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah.
And then in 2001, it was Kenny Breck in second place, and then Michael Andretti in third. Kenny Breck was a rookie in 2000, if I remember what I read earlier today correctly.
Okay.
So that was
And
a pretty good turnaround.
Ray Hall, right?
Yep.
Ray Hall
Should have been.
Yeah.
Should have been Ray Hall at that time.
Yeah.
2003 Indy 500 winner. He started 10th. Teammate Elio Castroneves on pole, and I believe Elio finished second to Gil during that thing. He is, I think that one piece of information that comes up most notably whenever you look up Gil de Ferran is this closed course record holder, fastest lap at California Speedway, 241.428 miles an hour average, right? Think about
crazy.
that. That's fast, dude.
Crazy.
That's crazy
really
fast.
fast.
Yeah.
That's a cool record. I know it's cool, great to be an Indy 500 winner, right? Like that's huge, and to be a championship, but to have the close course fastest lap, that's
23 years later, and I don't believe we even have a sniff at that record.
No, I wouldn't.
They don't race at tracks, I think, that are conducive to it. Maybe the Speedway, right? Maybe Indy. But at the end of the day, I don't think they race on tracks that are conducive. It was at California Speedway, but I don't think they race on tracks that would be conducive to that.
Yeah, and California Speedway is not there like it was anymore.
Half blown up, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
pretty sweet.
He was also a American Le Mans Series owner and co-driver, and then he was an IndyCar team co-owner as well. Tim, I don't recall a driver or a person being remembered in such a way across multiple disciplines. When you take a look after it happened on Twitter, on Instagram, all the various social media platforms, there were the motorsports community across the board were all paying tribute to Gil de Ferran. I think one thing that you would say is obviously it doesn't matter. Most people would never speak ill of the dead. So even if you didn't have a kind thing to say, or you couldn't think of a kind thing to say, I think people would just say, hey, it's unfortunate. He was very young and he was a great competitor. And, thoughts and prayers for his family. But you don't get any of these generic support statements anywhere.
No.
Everybody has incredibly compelling stories to tell about Gil de Ferran, which I think just kind of underscores the type of human being that he was, and the type of person that I think he'll be remembered for. It's been 20 years since he's been in the cockpit of a race car, and he's had a pretty successful business career since in that time, but he was still known as a racer, right? Which is interesting because I was listening to this Marshall Pruitt podcast, and I would encourage you to take a listen to it. Marshall has like a 6-part series where he interviewed different drivers to talk about Gil de Ferran, and Simon Pagenaud mentions that de Ferran had mentioned it to him one time. He was like, I've been on the car for 20 years, but people still know me as a race car driver.
Yeah.
But he's a very successful businessman. So,
but I think when you're an Indy 500 champion and a 2-time kart champion and all that stuff, like, and people remember you for that. And so that's kind of, I think when he was in his business roles, he wasn't like the front man all the time. I think he was working behind the scenes with a lot of drivers and a lot of teams, and you'd see him here and there. And I think the most we saw him was when he was with McLaren and he was doing the effort with Fernando Alonso. But otherwise, I think he kind of was in the back he took the back seat and still was obviously a player within the team, but wasn't the flashy guy, if you will. And I think as you mentioned, all the people that had stuff to say, I think he's a great person and a great human, right? He just wasn't a racer. He was somebody who really cared about people and who they were, and was genuinely a good guy.
Yeah. He, imagine what that personality would have been like in a team with a young Elio Castroneves at any age, really, because he was slated to be teammates with Greg Moore, who, Greg was also a little bit more low key as well, right?
Yeah, I think so.
And then you've got this Elio Castroneves personality joining that team after Greg unfortunately died at California Speedway. But, I imagine those two on that team together were just a little crazy. Like,
yeah, for
you know
sure.
what I mean? Like two very different personalities. But yeah, very, very sad, very unfortunate. I was just shocked when I saw that news, and
I think everybody was, and I think that's part of the outreach as well. You got to live every day, and you got to appreciate every day, because you never know when your time is. And 56, like you mentioned, is young for sure.
He died racing a car. At the end of the day, it's what he was doing. You know what I mean? Some of us could be so lucky. You don't want to be standing at the sink doing dishes and, you know what I mean, conk out there. I'd rather, if you're a race car driver, you'd rather do it in a race car.
Yeah, for sure.
One other, I think, shock, to the system, another motorsports legend, Cale Yarborough, aged 84, a more, I think, understandable age. But I think the part that kind of surprised me a little bit, Timmy, is he's a 4-time starter at the Indianapolis 500.
I know.
Did you know this?
I was not aware. Yeah. No, I guess I haven't looked back that far at records and who was there. But I think at that time, that's when people transcended and went to different, whatever was racing that weekend, that's where they went and raced.
Yeah. So thanks to our friend Spencer at IndyCar1909.com, who called that out on Twitter when the news broke. In fact, Spencer has a terrific in memoriam for both drivers. on IndyCar1909.com. So please take a look at that when you get a chance to. It's a good read. Obviously, Cale Yarborough is better known as a NASCAR driver, champion, Daytona 500 champ.
Yeah, for sure.
He was eventually a NASCAR team owner. But looking at his 4 IndyCar starts at the 500 specifically, 1966 was his first year. He finished 28th. After starting 24th, he had a crash. 17th after starting 20th, 16th after starting 14th, and then finished in 10th, which was his best Indy 500 finish after starting 32nd. Again, notable for like what you said, it was in an era where racers raced. It didn't matter what discipline it was. It didn't matter what series it was in or what these cars or what the road was, right? These guys just got in and raced. Didn't matter where or what it was. And he also raced him at an era where bumping at Indianapolis for the 500 was bumping, right? It wasn't one car and we're going to lose one guy, but we kind of know who's the 33 starters are going to be, right? And it was true bumping, and it was across a variation of chassis and engine combinations, and people showed up at the 500 and used the rules to their advantage and did everything they possibly could. So the fact that he was able to do that, made 4 successful starts, finished where he finished, but still there's only a handful of folks necessarily that have finishes at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and our Daytona 500 champions and our NASCAR champions. So, he's in rarefied air. He also has his career best open wheel finish was at Michigan Speedway, 1971, where he finished 5th.
Yeah,
which I think is interesting. We had to get the open wheel cars back at Michigan. I know I've been fighting against that, but I want to see them back.
It'd be nice to go back for sure.
Never going to happen, but
it'll happen.
Yeah.
It will happen, and you and I will go. No, I'll say, told you, Dan, that's happening.
You and I are supposed to go to Milwaukee, but we haven't even discussed that.
No, we haven't. We haven't discussed a whole lot on.
You guys I know
you're going to a lot of
one.
places. I don't know where Tim's going.
83 wins for Cale Yarborough, tied for 6th most. Again, I thought was interesting. 4 Daytona 500 wins, second only to Richard Petty. Again, I thought it was interesting. I'm not a big NASCAR follower. I'm a fan of motorsports, not a big NASCAR follower. 3 consecutive series championships, or 3 years in a row, 1976, 77, 78. How old were you, Tim?
I was just a little baby at that
1,
time.
2, and
3. Same
3.
age as you. Yeah.
Yep. First to do this. He was the first to do that when 3 consecutive championships, matched by Jimmy Johnson, who did that in 2006, 7, and 8. I actually went on to 5 in a row, which, again, did you know this?
Jimmy Johnson.
I need to start paying more attention to NASCAR, I guess.
Yeah.
Tim, he even started the 1981 24 Hours of Le Mans in a Chevy Camaro.
It just shows that Cale Yarborough is a racer, a true
racer, man,
hard racer.
Yes.
And I think we just appreciate true racers in this podcast. And so he's one of them, and he's definitely one dimension. And to give the stats is really cool, just because you don't hear this stuff all the time unless you're a historian and you're really into NASCAR. You wouldn't know this stuff. And it's good to reflect back on what they gave back to the sport, and this is a lot here.
Yeah, these guys, I mean, pioneers of the sport, and everybody who has come since, and Jimmy Johnson being able to do what he did. I mean, he stands on the shoulders of guys like Cale Yarborough, guys like Alex Palou, who come to the sport in IndyCar, stand on the shoulders of guys like Gil de Ferran, to be able to do what they do. Certainly thoughts and prayers to the families, friends, and fans of Gil de Ferran and Cale Yarborough. May their memories be a blessing. Before we get into listener notes, you want to cover this next piece? Did you see this in the Free Press?
No, I did not see this.
Yeah. So saw this in the Detroit Free Press this weekend. And the heading says, company's board too deferential to Roger Penske, blew $1 billion. So of course I clicked on this story because I'm like, it's got to be Indiana. It's got to be IndyCar and the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, right? Although I didn't think his investment would be $1 billion, but I'm like, it's got to be. I bet you it's IndyCar. Actually, it wasn't. I was surprised to hear that it was a stock buyback issue that happened that resulted in Roger Penske moving his share of the company, Penske Corp, from 43.7% to 52.2%, which means he has the controlling interest in this company. Anything he says and does, they will do. Jump, they say how high. All this happened without Roger spending a dime of his own money, which would have been estimated to be about a $450 million investment on Roger's part if he had done this on his own. But instead, it was through company buyback. Part I find interesting here, the real part that I find interesting here is that the individual or individuals who are bringing this suit against Penske and the board was not identified. They identified everybody else, all the board members, one particular board member who used to work for Huntington Bank, who, has since retired, and what all the board members are paid for their service and everything else. So they were very detailed in the Free Press article, except who's bringing the lawsuit. So to me, I'd love to know who's bringing it and why. But at the end of the day, I really don't believe it's going to amount to anything. They're saying that the board is, did not live up to their fiduciary agreement to the shareholders by allowing the stock buyback.
I would just say
given back to the shareholders through a special dividend.
Yeah,
is what it should have been.
I would just say that in the business world, sometimes things happen. So it's good to be in high places in some organizations, because sometimes you get the benefit of that, and somebody's trying to blow the whistle here. So we'll see what plays out, but I don't think it's going to have any impact on the series or IndyCar or anything like that. But
nope. Or on Penske Corp or Penske Automotive Group or anything to do with it. The guy's name's on the building, right? And I don't never got the sense that we were running this like he was just the chairman or the CEO, and he had an interest in the company, and it was just his name on the building. I don't think anybody who follows IndyCar or follows anything to do with the Roger Penske story would believe that Roger is not have a iron grip on this company. And
even at his age, which he's up there.
Even at his age. He's stronger than both you and I, Tim. He wouldn't have run out of gas on the mountain bike trail yesterday. He would have powered right through it.
I don't know about that, but
well, Roger's not athletic.
I'll take the challenge.
He doesn't feel athletic in the octogenarian Roger Penske's not doesn't feel athletic to you.
No, not at all. That's one race I might win.
That's one race you might win. Were you athletic? Did you ever play sports? You're an AD
a little bit, but not a ton.
What did you play?
I wasn't big enough. I was a little guy, so I didn't do a whole lot. So
what did you do?
Football, baseball, basketball. I did it all. Tennis.
You did?
Yeah, I played a little bit of everything. I just didn't, I didn't make it to the pros in anything that I did, unfortunately. But
well, clearly, because you're here doing this podcast with me.
I'd still do this podcast with you, even if I wasn't a pro somewhere.
He's not a retired pro doing a podcast with me because I asked him to.
No, I'm not.
Because I forced his hand into it.
Then here we are.
He knows better now not to think I'm not serious about anything I say I'm going to do.
I know. Here we are on a Sunday night.
I never played anything, by the way. I didn't discover that I even had an interest in anything athletic at all until
you didn't play anything.
Like
I figured that's why you asked. I didn't want to ask.
I never played anything. So.
Well, now you're a accomplished cyclist for sure. So I know
a multi-sport athlete, Timothy.
You swim now. You're a triathlete. Did you do the marathon or is it a half?
Half. I've done a few.
That's better than me. We didn't do the snow run. What happened to that?
Well, you got your chance February 3rd. I'll be in Port Huron. Come on up.
February 3rd. All right.
Because I think my running team.
You're doing that one this year because you didn't do it last year.
I didn't do it last year because I was in Daytona with you.
Oh well.
And the three very lovely ladies that run with me.
They did it on their own.
They did it on their own. They're holding me hostage now, so they're not joining up with me, even though I've already signed up.
How I'm sorry, listeners. How long are you? What's the distance? Just so I can...
It's 5 or 10K, but I signed up for the 5.
Okay.
Yeah,
I can do 5K.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You can do that. It's easy.
What is that? What do they say? Couch to 5K?
Uh-huh. You don't even need it. You'll get out there and do it. You're more athletic than you give yourself credit for. I struggle with it. Um, Listener notes.
Let's
Wrap
do
this
it.
thing up with some listener notes. Spencer, our good friend at IndyCar1909.com, writes to say we're talking specifically about our last episode where we had some random news and notes, and part of the news and notes was the delay of the hybrid in IndyCar. So Spencer writes to say that the delay of the hybrid might have a positive effect with some of the rate or weight reduction measures IndyCar is putting in place. This might lead to increased speeds, especially for the 500. You can have a lighter transmission case. I love how this thing does this. Right,
Yes, I
this
like
thumbs
I
up,
love the thumbs up.
the
That's
AI
great.
thumbs up.
Mhm.
Lighter transmission case, and then I believe that the aero screen is also going to be a lighter piece, like an aero screen 2.0 from Red Bull
Yeah, I think it's
technology.
they're taking some weight out of
So
it.
you're going to
Yeah.
have some of that, but no hybrids. So they'll have the benefit of some weight reduction. You agree with that?
Yeah,
Is that a
maybe.
good consolation prize?
Well, I don't know. I say you just turn the boost up and let them rip. Uh, Even with the weight reduction, I think you're going to have balance issues, right? It's going to be a little bit different than the teams are used to. So I think if you can get the balance figured out based on the weight reductions, then yeah, I think you should have a little bit of increased speed. Um, but I don't think anybody's looking at that. Maybe at the 500 when you look at maybe the pole speed, because I know last year was a record all time. So maybe that could be exciting, but I don't know. Get a new chassis and then everybody'd be
Oh
excited.
God,
And
yeah,
get a couple of
yeah,
them. I guess that's where I'm at.
yeah, yeah. Hey, what an appropriate segue because Phil writes that things aren't totally on fire, but we should hear some alarm bells. And Phil, I totally agree.
I think
And
the
there's a
sprinklers
couple
are
of
going
points.
off
Oh
trying to
yeah,
put the fire
totally.
out.
Yeah, yeah. And there's a couple of points I want to get your take on, Tim. IndyCar is suggesting that the hybrid is delayed, right? Meaning what we might see the hybrid make its appearance in the 2024 season after the Indy 500. They say mid-season. I think everybody kind of uses the Indy 500 as that mid-season mark for whatever reason. So let's just say after the 500. Is that a good idea?
I don't think so. I think
Yeah,
you
me
got to wait
neither.
until it's ready to go. And if that means you got to wait till
But if
2025, geez, what year
it,
is it? 24? Yeah, you got to wait till
yeah,
25. Then that's what you do. I get it from a manufacturing standpoint. You want to have the hybrid, but you've got the manufacturers working on it.
yeah,
Company that was working on it bailed or they fell apart or something. And so the burden's been put on the engine manufacturers to make that happen. So I guess if they're ready, let's throw it out there. But I don't know if I like the mid-year change.
me neither. I'm not happy with the mid-year change because I still feel like it's untested. Um, and it could definitely swing results and kind of change the season finish for anybody who might be having a stellar year going into Detroit
Yeah.
because
And
they're
that
not going to
doesn't,
put it out in Detroit, right? So it's going to go Indy 500, Detroit, which you have those back to back weekends. So you got the 500, you
yeah,
have
you can't
Detroit,
switch
and then
over. Yeah.
you got Road America. So when are you going to see it after Road America? Maybe,
Mm-hmm.
but what do you
Maybe.
do then? Right? If
Yeah.
Pelot's beating everybody's brains in again, and then they get their batch out, and then he has struggles at Mid Ohio. He's got struggles at Iowa. He's got struggles at along with a handful of other guys, and then all of a sudden you've got you know
It could make the
Stingray
season very
Robb,
interesting. Yeah.
in second place in the series championship.
Yeah. I sort of miss the days of engines blowing up. It was kind of one of
Yeah, I
those
didn't.
things that it
I'm
added a
with you.
little bit
I don't
of
mind it
excitement
once
to
in a
the
while.
event.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't
You
want to
know,
see
you
8 cars finish.
I don't either, but at the same time, it adds to the drama, right?
Yeah,
I think if you look at years past and what took place and someone's out front a long time at a 500 miler and all of a sudden the engine goes, you're like, whoa, is there a problem with the Mercedes? Is it all the
yeah,
Mercedes engines? Is it
yeah,
the Ford engines? What is it? Like, what's going on? Is it the Toyotas? I named all
yeah,
manufacturers that aren't in the series anymore, but
yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't know. We'll see. I mean, to me, I don't see IndyCar doing it. To be honest with you, I really don't. I feel like they won't do it. I think that the teams will push back on it. I think the manufacturers will push back on it too,
Yeah.
particularly if one manufacturer is dominating versus the other, because I think that they have the same fear. It's like,
Hmm.
well, we're going to put this component on, and yeah, we did some testing, but we brought the testing to an abrupt halt because we knew we weren't going to launch it.
Yeah.
So I don't see anybody do, and we already know that Honda's at this point, I think, has IndyCar's attention.
Oh, absolutely.
So
We
I would
saw
I
that
would
and
suggest
dove
that,
into
yeah,
it. Yep.
yeah, yeah. Second point that Phil makes, Formula E, which I know you're a huge Formula E fan, you
Oh
and
gosh, I
Bill
love
from
the
Shelby.
noise. It's so good.
Yeah, it's the tires. The you and Bill from Shelby all over
And
this
the
Formula
wind
E.
up, whatever the wind
Yep,
up
yep,
is.
yep,
Oh,
yep. Formula E is contracting a fourth gen chassis, all while IndyCar is still working with their 12-year-old chassis, albeit with upgrades along the way. Tim, we've said it before. This is a big deal, but not in a good
mhm.
way.
Yeah, it is a big deal. I think when you look at Formula E, I think that chassis has to change so much because I think the technology is changing uh, so quickly when it comes to EV power that you
Mhm.
gotta bring new chassis to fit whatever the new electric engine is and battery componentry that goes along with it. So I think if you look at it though, it's very interesting because you look at that and go, wow, maybe that's why there's chassis after chassis after chassis. And you look back at the history of, ICE vehicles and how they evolved over time. And maybe that's why you look back at IndyCar history, and that's why chassis changed so often. And they had different chassis because they had different engines and were trying to figure out how to make it the most advanced it could be. And maybe we're just in a stagnant area with ICE vehicles, and so do you need to change the chassis? Not really to fit the engine unless you're going to do something hybrid-esque or you're going to
Yeah,
go full electric.
yeah.
You got to look at it that way too and go, maybe that's why they have so many chassis changes.
It could be, but they could retrofit just like IndyCar has. I mean, just continue to retrofit and just do the bare
Yeah,
minimum.
that's
But
true.
back in the day, I mean, you and I lived in an era where, right, we had four chassis on the track at any given moment, right?
Yeah.
Penske and Lola and Renard Swift. I mean,
Yeah.
those were the days, man. The thing is about and I've been thinking about this too. So not just with chassis, but with any engine manufacturers. Let me say in English, my first language. The why can't I say engine
Engine?
manufacturers? I keep wanting to leave the
I don't
G
know.
silent. Anyway, who gets it? So let's say IndyCar is able to land a third engine manufacturer, Toyota, Hyundai, Mazda, whoever, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who gets it?
I,
Because if you're Toyota, wouldn't you say, if you want me, I'm coming for Penske or Ganassi? Who am I dancing with?
well, yeah, I don't think you get either one of those. I think
You don't.
Penske's
So
been
then
with
who's the
Chevy
tier two?
forever.
Who's the tier two?
You go
And
with
he owns part of
Andretti.
Ilmore, right? So is he going to
Yeah.
give that up or whatever? But okay, so who's the tier two?
You're either
Andretti,
with
Ray Hall,
eh, McLaren.
right? Yeah.
Those are so I think that's where you go. And I think
Is that good enough?
if you're a manufacturer, I think you go to McLaren. I would think.
I think you go to McLaren first, right?
Yeah, I think
Andretti,
that's where you
McLaren
go.
first, maybe, right?
Yeah.
If you're Toyota, Hyundai, Mazda, whatever it is. Um, if you're a chassis manufacturer, if they're somehow able to differentiate these chassis, then how do you decide who gets what? Even if both are built by Dallara and they're differentiated enough, how do you
Hmm.
decide
Yeah.
who gets what? Is it just a blind draw?
Well, I would hope there's contracts in place and there's that's whoever wants to spend the money, right, to have that engine in there or that chassis, whatever it might be. I think that's what it
Who's
sort of
willing to
boils
take the
down to.
risk? Because that's what
Yeah.
it was back then, right? It was Ray Hall Hogan was willing to take the risk on a overweight Honda engine coming to IndyCar that grossly underperformed, and they had to bail on that Honda deal at the end of that year, I think they tried to bail on Honda at the 500. I'm going to get some of this history kind of mixed up, so Spencer will definitely correct me, which is fine. But I think those days don't exist anymore because I think the stakes are too high. I don't know that your partners, your team partners, your sponsors are willing to take that risk. Is somebody willing to pay you $6 million a year for we might be sucking wind in 26th and 27th place on a very regular basis.
Yeah, I think you got to take some risk in order to be rewarded, right?
Totally agree.
So from that standpoint, I think you're pretty solid if you're looking at, the teams beyond Penske and Ganassi. There's some quality teams that can definitely perform as long as you got an engine that makes sense. And if you have if it's poorly performing, then that's going to be tough too. But I think as a team,
like the Lotus, remember when the Lotus was out?
Yeah,
they were doing everything they could to try to bring that thing together. The other thing I'll tell you, what I feel like in this conversation is in the lack of new chassis development. Yeah, it's always cost, right? Everything comes at a cost. But if they think it's going to be a performance advantage and they think it's going to put more eyes on TV, then the cost is definitely worth it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would tell you that it is partially cost, but I think that at this point, 12 years down the road with the same chassis, I think it's risk averse. If you're Chip Ganassi, are you going to say, "Yeah, I'm good. Let's just add this one to the collection hanging on the wall, and let's just get the new DW24."
Mm-hmm.
Right? If you're Penske, right, you're pretty much assured you're going to win all these short ovals. You're going to be pretty good on the street courses. Yeah, let's just pack it in. Let's do the next one.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's the risk that you run, even if it's all the same manufacturer. That's the risk that you run because it's like, well, I've hit the nail on the head with this thing, right? We've developed it to the total max. There's nothing left we can do to it. And Ganassi's then hit the bullseye how many years in a row? So if you're Chip Ganassi, you can easily say, well, I don't want to spend $500,000 a chassis for plus backups for a 5-car team. I'm sure he doesn't, but he also has a performance advantage.
Mm-hmm.
Why spend the money?
Mm-hmm.
You could easily say, I don't want to spend the money. I have a performance advantage. Make me.
Yeah, for sure.
Roger Penske, performance advantage. You tell me that Andretti, who struggled with this thing and the weight distribution and everything else, they wouldn't have thrown this thing away if they were given a chance at another chassis, or Rahal, who has struggled.
Yeah.
Right? Struggled until Toronto last year. Struggled. That they wouldn't have thrown this thing away? Absolutely.
Yeah, totally would have moved on.
Yeah. Ooh, I liked where that went, Timmy. Good job. The last listener writes, Charlie Mack. Charlie Mack and I had a text exchange discussing the predictability of F1. I don't know that anyone can argue that the last couple of years of F1 has been pretty predictable. It wasn't like we were going into this thing as a nail biter. This wasn't Michigan, Alabama. The point I was making was to Charlie, without the hybrid, without a new chassis, without a new engine manufacturer, here I go again, engine manufacturer, IndyCar is in danger of becoming predictable. I'll give you 2 points and I want to hear your thoughts, Timmy. First, everyone has Newgarden, which drives me bananas. Everyone has Newgarden penciled in to win the short ovals, right? Predicted last year. And guess what? Came true. Same people predicting all these short ovals for plus, right? Milwaukee, which we're going to go to, Newgarden winning, right? The second point I'll make, someone at Ganassi will win this championship. Someone at Ganassi won that championship. Tell me your thoughts, Tim. Predictability in IndyCar.
I don't
in
think
danger
so.
of, or it's already here.
I don't think it's either. I don't think it's in danger of or here. I think you're going to have your top teams. You've always had top teams that have always come have bubbled up. The whole oval thing, I think I want to call it a fluke, but I don't think it was a fluke. They were just really good on the oval.
12-year-old chassis that's been right?
I
To
know, but I
develop
don't
to
think it
the
makes it
max.
predictable. I think there's way too much that goes on in IndyCar. Maybe I'm just looking through the fog and trying to, convince myself. But I don't think you go in. If it was that predictable, you and I could pick winners after each event, and
Oh, we were
we're not
horrible
able
at it
to.
last year.
We're terrible.
That's
So
right.
I
Yeah.
would say
Yep.
the general narrative is probably predictable, but what happens day in and day out in each race, I don't think it really is. I
Yeah.
think there's too much stuff going on. It is racing, by the way.
Yeah. Charlie did reference McLaren and Andretti might have something to do with the changing the predictability. You could probably add Rahal into that because they had a pretty good finish to the season last year. And if they're able to continue that, we'll
Potentially,
see what
yeah,
happens.
yeah,
I didn't really say much about McLaren, but I did agree with Charlie that Andretti might have something to say about it this year, which I'm certain made him lightheaded because I'm usually not prone to saying too
yeah,
many loving things about
yeah,
Andretti Autosport. But I will tell you this: why I think Andretti can be a spoiler this year. Going back to the three teams, going back to three quality drivers,
yeah. I
right?
agree.
Ericsson, Kirkwood Cowwood, um, and Colton Herta, right? So
Yeah,
I think that putting those three guys on track, leaving the fourth car at home, and not
yeah,
having to deal with that. I also think Romain Grosjean, who, when things were really good, things were really good. When things went really bad, it was horrific there.
yeah. It was off the rails. Yeah,
Yeah, I think it was probably toxic, and it was toxic throughout the entire garage, throughout the entire, you know, as
mm-hmm.
they say in Formula One, right at the factory.
Yeah,
So I think with all that gone away, I think all the stops are out for someone like an Andretti Autosport or Andretti Global to
yeah.
be a
I think
spoiler.
that could be good. It's an interesting driver lineup, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder, who you think is top of the game. How does it sort of? I think they're all like super high quality racers, but what's the pecking order and what does it sort of look
You
like?
want
And
mine? I'll tell you mine.
I would love to hear it. I'm not sure I know mine yet, and
Yeah.
so to
I would
hear others, that
yeah.
would be good to.
I would tell you I have a 1A, 1B and a 2. And my 1A right now is Marcus Ericsson. My 1B is Kyle Kirkwood and my number 2 is Colton Herta.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, I think I had my two or my three already picked out, and it's actually your number one. And I think I
My
just
number 1 where?
your 1A is my two or three, depending on how
Okay.
I would rank
Yeah.
the individuals. And I only say that is because that driver has come from the best performing
That's
team there
Ericsson. Yeah.
is.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
And I don't know if he was that dominant in that car. And so I
We're
wonder
going
when
to
you go to,
see, right?
I know
Yeah.
that's the intriguing part,
Yeah.
the unpredictability of the season of what's going to happen in that. So
Mhm.
I like the move because I think it brings a lot of interest into how good is Marcus Ericsson? Is he really good? Is he average? We know in Formula One he was not good. And so what does it look like going to a team that you could arguably say is third or fourth or fifth in the number of teams in a ranking of the teams how good they are. So what does he bring to the team, and how does it bring results, and what happens to
And
Team Andretti?
what I think he brings to the team is Ganassi intel, right? This is how we did it. Not necessarily the technical piece because I don't think you could
But do you
really
think the
bring
heads
that
want to
much
hear
over.
that?
Absolutely. Well, you hope that the heads want to hear that,
I
right? You hope that the heads look. I hired somebody this past year from a competitor,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And it wasn't like I was looking for like inside information. It was like I was looking like, hey, this is what we do in these situations. Tell me from your perspective, what would you do? What do you think is the best move for this? Right? Given your history, given what you've
From your
seen,
experience, yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I and it's hard for me to do it, right? Because I think we do a pretty damn good job of what we do, how we do it, and how long we've been doing it.
Yeah, for sure.
But we're not that competitor. And in this situation, right, we never really talk brands or what we do, but if you know what I'm talking about, right?
Oh
Number
yeah.
one, versus a scrappy number 3, right? I want to know what number 1 is doing.
Yeah,
I can't do it, but I still want to know what number 1 is doing and how they're
yeah.
doing it. Not the
Well, you
insider
hope the
stuff.
leadership
That's
would
not
want to
what I'm
hear
saying.
that,
Right. Yeah.
and you would assume good leadership. That's what
Yeah.
they want to hear, and that's why part of the reason you bring them over is to learn and understand. But at the same time, you're going to have those that don't want to hear it. Right? This is how we do it. This is what we're
Oh,
going to do, and this is the way we're
absolutely.
going to make it.
Yeah.
So
You hope that they're not
it's
like
going to be
that.
an interesting season for Team Andretti.
Can you see them being like that?
Global.
I can, but you hope that they're not. Right?
No,
You
there's a
hope
lot
that
of
they're
egos
not.
in this sport. So
Yeah. Yeah. That's all I got, Timmy.
yeah, I don't have anything else. Obviously,
Good to
it's
see you.
the off
Happy New Year.
season. It's long. Yeah, Happy New Year.
I'm glad you feel better. I hope everybody
I'm
else feels
getting
better
there.
soon.
I've been wiping my nose for those of you who've been watching. Sorry
That's
about
right.
that, and trying to get well here. But
It's totally fine. Oh my God, my
yeah,
desk is moving.
so I'm looking forward to our next show talking about 24 hours of Daytona. I'm happy you guys are going. I can't wait to hear
That'd be a
what
lot of
it's
fun.
all about when you're there. If stuff has changed, and I'm looking forward to IndyCar season and
Baby girl
spring.
has a whole social media plan built around this thing.
I can't wait to see it.
I hope it works.
You gave her all the credentials, right? She knows how
Yeah,
to
yeah,
do them.
she's got them. Yeah,
All
yeah.
right, good.
So she's
Good,
got
good,
it,
good.
and although she is on a mission to find like Patrick Dempsey, so I'm
Hey,
hoping that doesn't.
you
We'll
gotta
get there
have
early
goals when
enough
you
on
go, right? You
Saturday.
can't just
Yeah, and as you know, you have a lot of access at IMSA, and then what you have not been able to experience because you've always had a day job function, right? While I
yeah,
was there,
yeah,
like earlier, than
yeah,
was
yeah.
that you can walk the grid
Yeah, I've never
when the
been able to
cars
do
are out
that.
there and the drivers are out there and all that stuff. So you've never been out there for that. So we'll be able to be out there for that. So I'm pretty sure we're going to get thrown out because she will tackle Patrick Dempsey to the ground. I'm sure,
Well,
which is
just
fine.
hold her back.
End up watching it on TV.
I've seen
My
those
in-laws
kids on
place.
leashes, right? Just not that I'm suggesting
I
anything.
never
I'm just
lost a
letting you
kid, Tim. I never lost a
Me
kid at
neither.
a
Yeah,
store or anything like
I've
that. Never
tried,
lost a
but
kid.
it never works out. They always
Yeah,
come back.
never lost a kid. So never lost a kid. That's it. Continue to engage with us on social media. Happy New Year to everybody. Thanks for listening. We'll continue to bring regular content every couple of weeks. And if we will try to integrate some of these things into the show, some of the comments and things that happen. We have always tried to do that. But we do like to see it, and we do like to hear it. We don't have all the answers. We just make it up as we go.
Yeah. Well,
Go
I
blue,
think you
Tim.
should. I think you should. What'd you say?
So go blue.
Oh, I was going to say, I think you should close the call by saying "Go Blue," and you just did it. So there you go. We're all
Go
on the
blue.
same page.
Go Lions. We'll see how they we'll see if they can move up to the number 2 seed, which I mean, it's possible. I think as of right now, I think Philadelphia is getting killed. By
the Cowboys beat Commanders, I think.
So. Oh, did they? Okay. Yeah. The Washington football team.
Yeah, whatever they are.
Yeah.
That's my team, by the way, folks.
I know. It's so weird. I have to talk about that one these days.
Yeah. One day we'll have to get into that one.
All right. Good night, everybody. Thanks for listening.
Good night.